Thank you for coming to this, the first of our Moses Gun Play Series. We plan to do concert readings featuring well-known playwrights as well as new playwrights. We will use local actors as well as professionals once we get a little build-up of funds to pay them. And we'll be getting them from the workshop in Norwalk, Connecticut, where Norman attends, and as well as old friends from New York. Norman is a product of the Old South, the Jim Crow South. And these writings, while not wholly autobiographical, reflect his experience growing up in the rural South after World War II. His father had been a Ku Klux Klan member. He attended segregated schools and worked from age 6 with African Americans as a field hand. The language and locutions used in these pieces accurately reflect the conversations that he heard back then as a child. The first monologue concerns Harris Jenkins, a fallen aristocrat, a member of what had been before the war a very wealthy family of planters. So turn off your cell phones, unwrap your candies, and enjoy the show.
My brother's name is Hollis Jenkins. He is a twin of mine. He is fat. I am not. He wears a necktie and a fedora hat every day of his life. I do not. My name is Harris Jenkins. Harris and Hollis. Mother thought that was a clever way to name twins. Hollis and Harris. Hollis is still called Hollis. I'm called Jinx. He doesn't like being a twin. Neither do I. We don't agree on much else, except for farming. Neither one of us likes to farm. He moved over town. I still live on the GD farm. A father died in, I think it was 1919 or maybe 1920. At any rate, it was after the World War. Now, Hollis moved away almost before they had thrown the last shovel of dirt down in the old man's face. Now, neither Mother nor I care much for farming. We do not care much for things that cost money. So, we did not break our backs trying to find more field hands to work the place. We cultivated as much acreage as old Buck and his family could keep up with and let the honeysuckle take the rest. Father implored me with his dying breaths to keep the farm intact and provide for Mother. I said yes, but I did not mean a word of it. One might say I lied to him, if it is possible to lie to a dying old fool. Now, Mother saw to it that I lived up to at least half of that covenant. She made me stay here on the place, and I cultivated some of it after Father died. Money crops, corn, winter wheat, soldier beans. Mother keeps a little garden that I plow up every March with a tractor, and she does the rest. She raises enough that we don't have to spend but very little money on groceries. She cans enough tomatoes and butter beans and watermelon rind and crap like that to last all winter. She does it all herself. It's her business. If she cans 100 quarts, that's a plenty. I do help her out somewhat. I take 5 bushels of shell corn to Beatty's mill, and they give me back 3 bushels of cornmeal. And that is 160 pounds, give or take a poot, a sneeze, and a brickbat, and that will get us through the winter. Sometimes she gives a bucket or 2 of it to my asinine brother Hollis. She thinks cornmeal is what it takes to keep him coming around. For my money, that's as good as any reason to give him none at all. Then I dip 365 herring and salt them down. 365. Not 364 and not 366, except leap year. She would like to give Hollis some of the herring, and that is why I catch and cure only 365 of those creatures every spring. If I should dip 366, I throw one back. Hollis gets nary a GD fish. Now, we eat salt herring and cornbread for breakfast every day of the world. She fries the fish Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. She bakes the cornbread in the oven, and the other days she fries it. She likes variety. I eat 3/4 of the fish, and she eats the rest. She would like to raise a few laying hens, but I squelch that. She would like the eggs, but it is not worth having to step in the chicken manure all over the yard. I never like the eggs anyway, whether hen, duck, or quail. I never eat anything that comes out of a creature's anus. We do not spend much money. We need a little to pay the taxes, and $4 whenever Dr. Red drives out here to hand me some aspirin tablets and write paregoric prescriptions for Mother. Then a little for gasoline and something for tobacco. Now, my brother does not like me making whiskey. He says it goes against the church. Well, I'll tell you what I think about that. Hollis can kiss my GD you-know-what, and I do not mean on the right side, and I do not mean on the left side, but I mean right square in the hole. He used to tell me he was going to turn me into Dickie Decker, our local revenue agent, and get some reward money from the Commonwealth of Virginia. So I told him, you go right ahead, Hollis Jenkins. You go on ahead and get your blamed old $100 from Dickie Decker. I'll be absolutely delighted to spend a couple of years on the Goochland farm. It will be a vacation for me. And you can take your big fat behind and Dolores's big fat behind and your brood of roly-poly spawn, and you can all move into this house and take care of Mother for a while. And as a matter of fact, I'll give you another $100 bill if you do turn me into Dickie Decker. Mother does not seem to care if I make whiskey or not. As far as I know, she might not even know that I make whiskey. Of course, were that the case, she would be the only living creature in Hanover County so ill-informed. Her only interest is getting her paregoric doses. She pays close attention to nothing else. I am 63 years of age. I was born in 1891, right in this house. When I was a boy, we had slaves on the place. Not as many as father and grandfather had, only we did not call them slaves after the war. Nowadays, we call them colored when we are satisfied with them, and when not satisfied with them, we call them niggers. The war between the states reduced the number of our slaves, but we still had enough to get the work done. As long as we had colored people to work the place, I had no objection to farming. Well, World War I changed things. It was a terrible war, so I'm told. I was not drafted because of my physical disability. However, 2 of our colored fellows were drafted. Mother and I pleaded with a conscription officer not to take our boys, but the 2 of them stupidly told the authorities that they were eager to fight for their country, and off they went. That just left us with old Buck and his sow, Little Bit. Now, Buck had been born on our place before the war between the states and lived here ever since. Now, he was a good one, honest and loyal as they get. Now, Little Bit was so large that she could cast a shadow so wide and dark that grass died wherever she was standing. Well, their boys, Linwood and Horse, could both work hard when they saw fit to do so. Now, if on such and such a Saturday afternoon, I might tell them that if they want to get paid tonight, they had to work until every row of this corn gets chopped, why then you would see a high level of useful activity from those boys, because nothing was going to keep them out of Lucy Wright's dance hall on a Saturday night. Now, if they could, they would haul every red cent of their money down at the Lucerites and spend every nickel of it on moonshine, whiskey, skinny-colored whores, and all that bangity, bangity, bangity nigger music that they play down there. Those boys had all the money they needed. If I'd given them any more, they would have spent 2 nights a week at Lucerites, and that much white whiskey and black poontang would have killed them both. It would have saved the Germans in trouble, because both those boys got killed in France about 19 and 17. And I don't know if they got shot, or bayoneted, or blown up, or gassed, or what. It is none of my business. It was just like Mother and I had feared. We had no one to work their place but old Buck and the sow Little Bit. It was a terrible war. Buck and Little Bit took it hard losing those boys. I couldn't see it. They were nothing special. They're pretty good looking, at least for colored boys, but they couldn't read or write. Wouldn't go to school even when they had the chance. I'd ask them, "Hey, Linwood Hoss, you want to go to school today, or you want to make a nickel a road chopping corn?" Every time they would say, "I'd take that nickel, Miss Hires. Yes, sir, give me that nickel." Just as well. There's not one nigger in 10 who can learn to read anyhow. Well, Linwood and Hoss are both buried in some colored churchyard up the road from here. I don't know what the name of it is, some kind of holy roller place. I've walked by it on a Sunday morning, and they fall out and holler, they scream and cry and waller like they've lost their minds. If that's salvation, I'll have none of it. Well, old Buck and Little Bit both got sullen after the war, as she stopped working. Not a lick. She would not even eat food unless old Buck stuck it in her mouth. She was not worth a F-A-R-T. And she kept old Buck all tied up, waiting on her, so he wasn't worth a red cent either. Mother told him to get rid of her, or he would have to get off the place. Next morning she was gone. I don't know where she went, but she was gone. He might have knocked her in the head and buried her in the ground for all I know, but she was solid gone. Now, after Mother ran off that sow a little bit, old Buck sort of stopped laughing. He did his work as well as ever, but he stopped coming to the back door to sing. So did me. Now, I could not understand a word he said when he got to singing. He might have been moaning and screaming about Jesus, or he might have been moaning and screaming about fornication. I could not tell the difference. And after the war, well, World War I that is, it became impossible to get field hands. Young bucks commenced to moving over town to work in the factories that hired colored. Some of them moved up north to Washington, to Baltimore and Philadelphia, and places like that. You could see them come back down here showing off their cheap suits, their yellow shoes, and their rattle-trap Buicks. One day, Buck gave us an ultimatum. Can you imagine such a thing? A darky laying down the law. Right then and there, I saw why Mother yearned so fervently for the old days when we had all the servants we needed. Now, Buck demanded the 40 acres down by the road over next to Harding's land. At first, I thought he'd lost his mind. I was stunned. I sat there with my teeth in my mouth, listening to this black son of a gun carrying on. If we didn't give him what he wanted, he was going to walk off the place and go work for somebody else. He had us over a barrel. He said he would work for us for 5 more years to pay for it, and after that, he would be on his own. Well, we weren't doing anything else with that piece except paying taxes on it. So we got Otis Reese to survey it up, and the acreage he wanted measured out to a little more than 38 acres. Now, Buck started dancing around like he had to go to the toilet and yelled out that he wanted 40 GD acres. And I had never heard him take the Lord's name in vain before in my life. So I figured I'd better do something to keep him calm. And I told Otis to plot off another 1.5 acres back up in those scrub hickories and honeysuckle. Now, that ground wasn't fit to eat anything a white man would want to eat, so I said, go ahead and give it to him. So Buck worked for us for 5 more years. He raised enough for me and Mother to pay our taxes and buy clothes. Now, Mother stopped going to church, so she didn't need that 50 cents for the collection plate, and that saved us a little money. In a way, those were the best 5 years of my life. Father was dead and buried, so he didn't make no demands on me. Mother saw to it that it was her bounden duty to keep my clothes washed and pressed and my meals cooked and served. And old Buck did everything else. He worked this place all the while he was working his 40. He built a one-room house for himself on his acreage. First thing, he dug a hole in the ground, a GD hole. He put a roof on top of it, and I'll be a monkey's uncle if he didn't move into that hole in the ground with a stovepipe coming out of it and smoke coming out of the hole. I thought that living in a hole was about the dumbest, most niggified thing I saw in all my born days. But come to find out, Buck is smarter than I give him credit for being. What he done was go and dig the basement out and live in there and make the floor of the roof and go ahead from there and build the rest of the house on top of himself. And he built it out of bricks too. Now I have no idea where Buck learned to lay bricks, and he did a pretty good job of it. He would bring bricks home with him, 2, 3, 4 at a time. He would look for bricks looking along the road when he was walking along the road. If he found a rock or a piece of slate the size of a brick, he would use that. He found some rectangular tin cans that had held some cooking oil, and he filled those cans up with dirt and laid them just like they were bricks. And the doggonest part was he collected drink bottles, Coca-Cola bottles, Pepsi Cola, Dr. Grape knee-high, RC Cola bottles. And then he would get enough of each type, and when he would get enough of each type, he would lay them in mortar and make a glass window about 2 foot by 2 foot, and he would have all the bottoms of the bottles pointing to the outside of the house, so it was a window made up of little round panes of glass. Well, he commenced raising cucumbers. Nothing but cucumbers. Every week, 10 days, Uncle Willie Sizemore would show up with his 36 Chevrolet with a little trailer hitched behind it and carry off 10, 15 bushels of those cucumbers. They would do that every time, right from the time those things started coming in July until the weather got cold in November. And Buck was doing less and less work for us around the place and messing with those cucumbers, so it was up to me to start doing a few things. Now, I have never been cut out for farm work, but it got me out of the earshot of the old woman. Well, I was apt to get sunburned, so I tried not to go out in the field until late in the day. I guess I could have worked early in the day, but like the rest of these sod busters around here, I have trouble getting to sleep before 12 o'clock at night. So sometimes I would work after dark. And I was driving a tractor out by Cold Harbor Road one night, well after dark. Walking along now was Stump Crouch with a flashlight. Well, I knew he was up to something, snooping around in the middle of the night. Stump Crouch was nothing but a low-born jailbird with a tribe of nasty-faced, snotty-nosed children. And I pretended not to notice Stump Crouch that night. He ducked into the bushes when I came by. But he was scouting around for a new place to make his whiskey. It came to me, why not invite Stump Crouch to set his still up on my place? With Buck set to move out of my employment, I was going to need to make a few dollars. Now, I could charge rent to Stump Crouch. So that's exactly what I did. Stump hauled his distillery equipment down into a big ditch back in the woods that had been part of the breastworks around the Cold Harbor battlefield during the war between the states, and commenced making corn whiskey. Now, I'd go on down there while he was working to observe, and after I watched him run a few batches, I'll be deuced if I didn't know how to make white whiskey myself. So I got to thinking, what if I was to make this whiskey? Well, sir, I decided that was pretty much what I was going to do. Now, Stump Crouch is just about as ignorant a human being can be and still walk around on just his 2 hind legs. I don't think he ever made more than half a dozen batches of whiskey in any of his venues before Dickie Decker got wind of it and busted up the steel and sent Stump up to the State Farm in Goochland. It was a way of life for Mr. Crouch. He would make enough money to keep his wife and young'uns going until he returned from the State Farm. And Mrs. Stump Crouch was a notably enterprising woman who made her own money. Now, Mrs. Crouch had been known to make $1 or $2 by performing some nasty business on drivers at the Doswell truck stop over on the #1 highway. I've heard tell that she will suck your Peter for cash money. Now, there are businesses that one can carry around in a briefcase or in a vest pocket, but Mrs. Crouch had a business that she could carry around in her mouth. Well, Stump was not a cautious man. Sometimes it seemed to me that he likes getting arrested and going back up to Goochland. He has a lot of friends up there. The whole time he was serving his sentence, he would be taking orders for moonshine whiskey, extending his market, you might say. And I don't mean just the other prisoners. He had half the prison guards, the wardens, and everybody else you can think of give him orders for moonshine whiskey. Soon as he'd get out, he'd be hauling that whiskey on up to Goochland County. So Stump Crouch commenced making whiskey on my property. And he ran off a few batches over a period of a year and a half's time. And he's making right smart money. And I keep thinking, when is Dickie Decker going to take this fool away? Because by now it was clear to me that making whiskey was a way for me to live. I figured I didn't have to make more than 2 batches a year to keep me and Mother on Easy Street. I knew good and well that Dickie Decker could never catch me. I would make one batch while Dickie Decker was celebrating Christmas holidays. Then I would make another batch whenever he took his vacation in the summertime. Well, Stump Crouch started to get too big for his britches. And I had to remind him a couple times that he was working on my place and what I said was law. He woke me up early one morning to tell me to disc over the tire tracks by the road. Well, it wasn't even 5 o'clock yet, and there he was telling me what to do and when to do it. And that is what you get when you are dealing with white trash. Well, my mother is United Daughters of Confederacy, and I am Cincinnati Society. And I told Stump Crouch, while you are standing foot on my property, you don't tell me what to do. Now, the shortest way to get to the still from Cold Harbor Road was to go across an open field on which I had planted some field corn to make it look like I'm doing a little farming. From time to time, Stump Crouch would have to drive his truck down across that field when he was taking his distilling machinery down there, or what have you. And every time he would do that, I would hook up the John Deere tractor to the disc and make out like I was farming and destroy those tire tracks so that Dickie Decker would not see them. But Dickie Decker happened to be driving by that morning, and he saw those truck tires in the plowed up field, and he went on down there and arrested Stump, and Mr. Crouch went on back to Goochland. A fortnight or so later, I discovered that Dickie Decker hadn't made too bad a mess out of the still. Oh, he had busted up all the jars, and there was a couple of axe holes in the cook pot, and he chopped up the coils a little bit, but for the most part, everything was in good working order. A little soldering, a little hammering out of the dents in the pots, and I had me a working still. I didn't feel bad for Stump Crouch. He made his money, and his family was provided for. Besides, Mrs. Crouch still had her trade. Anyhow, that's how I got into the whiskey business. Now, when Stump got out of the penitentiary 31 months later, I gave him $100 for his equipment and told him he better stay the hell away from me and my place because Dickie Decker doesn't know what I'm doing and I don't want him to find out. And Stump cooperated very nicely. Being in prison has made a better man of him. Well, he had no trouble finding another premises on which to cook whiskey. So now I have the ideal life. I'm not a greedy man. I make just enough whiskey to keep shoes on my feet and the taxes paid. Whoever said that a man needs to survive by the sweat of his brow told a lie. Now just look at old Buck. He used to be just like me. No worries. Roof over his head. Plenty to eat. How crazy does a man have to be to give all that up? But he sure Lord did. Gave it all up. Now look at him. I guess he thinks he's a big man just because he got a new Buick and all those funny colored suits and hats and shoes. and he moved that sow little bit into the house. He dresses her all up like she's an African Christmas tree or something. Of anything more disgusting to look at than an obese nigger woman with a fur coat on. I don't speak to her. Well, Buck went into the pickle business, the GD pickle business. Can you imagine such a thing for a grown man to do? I wouldn't be caught dead in the pickle business. But I do like pickles, so I guess somebody's got to manufacture them. Just the right business for a nigger. Let him do something a white man doesn't want to do. God bless him.
The next monologue is Howard Hearns Carlyle. This is actually a poem, and it's based on Norman's attorney friend and mentor, a white man, son of a poor sharecropper who championed the destruction of racist, segregated Jim Crow institutions in Virginia. In 1947, he was arrested and prosecuted for integrating a segregated public facility, a movie theater, I believe, right?
It might have been a church service, I'm not sure.
Norman will be writing more about him in the future, and he is the bravest person that Norman has ever known.
Howard Hearns Carlyle. They say I'm a loudmouth. They're right. I have got a loudmouth. I'm thick-skinned. I can take it. They say I just want to get my name in the papers. They are right. And my picture, too. They say I am a Negro lover. They are right. And I like one or two white people as well. They wish I was dead. It is a wonder that I am not. My body became diseased because I am poor. The reason that I am blind in one eye is because I am poor. I went to the charity ward of a sanitarium because I am poor. When tuberculosis didn't kill me, the orderlies at Blue Ridge State Sanitarium tried to beat me to death. But the best they could do was blind me in one of my eyes. I was beat up by the orderlies in the sanitarium because everybody beats up poor people. So why shouldn't hospital orderlies? Fractured skull, broken right arm, various cuts and contusions, and blind in the right eye. I decided the minute that I returned to consciousness that the world needs to hear what a poor boy's got to say.
The next monologue is called Prisoner of War. And please keep that title in mind as you listen. The character Mammy is based on a woman who was born into slavery and who was given to elaborate diatribes at the local country store that many of the white folks found amusing and agreeable.
I started this new job when I was 81 years old. That's right, 81 years old. I ain't never had but one job before this one here. They talk about go on the old age. Get away. Ain't no old age for colored people. Roosevelt a dirty, low-down communist, and that's how come he don't give no old age to no colored people. Social Security, my big toe. Shoot. Bible say you must toil for your daily bread. Don't need no old age. Now, Miss Petty don't let me wear no rag on my head. Don't make me no mind. I wore a rag on my head for most 80 years, and that ought to be just about enough. Now, Miss Petty give me this here white bonnet and a white apron to wear with this black dress that hang down to the floor. I like it right good, too, you know. She said, Mammy, you look like a darky from the old South, but please don't smoke that stinking old pipe in my house. Now, the lace look right nice, but I wish this dress was blue or yellow or something else, because I ain't crazy about no black clothes. They make you look funny unless you're at somebody's funeral. Now, Miss Walls used to let me make my own clothes. That's what I like. Miss Walls ain't never minded if I use that sewing machine. 2 feedback. That's all. I can run up and dress myself after supper in one night. I take 2 feed bags and I commence a cutting and a stitching, and right after I wash the supper dishes, before I get in that bed, I got me a new dress. I always like the hog food feed bags the best. They are bigger than the chicken feed bags, and I think they're prettier too. Little flowers and all on them, blue, red, yellow, everything. Well, Miss Wall's gone now, bless her heart. Now, when I wasn't nothing but a young girl, they used to call me Zoodoo, Loodoo, or some mess like that. Them African peoples. You get away. Can't understand half what they say. I don't remember none of that. All I remember being called is Mammy. Back when I'm 4 or 5 years old and commenced to take charge of Mr. Elmer Walls. Now, he was an old man when he died, but he wasn't nothing but a little crawling around the floor squint when they first put me to looking after him. He called me Mammy back then, and I ain't never been called nothing else. He called me Mammy with his dying breath the day before he died, and he told me how good I had been to him. I is Mammy Walls. That's my God-given name, Mammy Walls. The best name in the world, Mammy Walls. Yes, Jesus, the best name in the world. And the first I remember, the war was over. The war between the states. I think it was over. And they tell me that the war was still going on at that particular time when I was born, but I can't remember no war. I ain't studied no war. There was the first war and the second war, but they didn't bring it around here. So I don't see none of it. So I ain't studied no war. And people run their mouth about the war this and the war that and Lincoln this and Lincoln that. But half the time they don't know what the deuce they talking about, and the other half the time I ain't listening. So don't come around here talking nothing about no war. I don't want to hear it. Starting trouble, that's all you doing. Yeah, I be working in the walls of this house all my born days. Inside the house. I ain't never hit not one lick outside. I ain't never pulled a ear corn. I ain't never picked a black-eyed pea. I ain't never honed a tater. Every now and then, I rake me up some leaves around the porch, but I do that because I love to rake leaves up and set them on fire. You look all around here. Go right down Creighton Road. Every house. All yellow gals working in the house. Miss Stack, Miss Bottoms, Miss Fairfield, Miss Hart, Miss Venable. They all got yellow gals inside the house. I, the only black-skinned gal working inside somebody's house in Hanover County. I ain't never been beat, not one time. How many niggas can say that? White people treat me right. First I remember they give me that little old white baby of mine, Mr. Elmer. And he was my owner at that particular time. They hand me Mr. Elmer, and I take care of him just like I was his mammy. I stick him in the bed at night. I change his breeches when he mess him up. I do everything a mammy do except slap a titty in his mouth when he cry, because I'm 5 years old and I ain't got no titty. Yeah, while Mr. Elmer growing up, the Wallses is brought low. Now, before the war, the Wallses plantation was most of Hanover County and some of Henrica. They had 10,000 niggers working for them. And after the war, most of them run off, going up north and everywhere else. What are you going to do up north? You got a job right here on Creighton Road. They all run off, all but me. I the only one left, and I stayed in that house from the time I was born until I was 81 years old. And Miss Wall done killed herself, and Claude Ashley done put me out. Well, Mr. Elmer's daddy, by the name of Mr. French Walls, had went to the college before the war, someplace up north. Prince John, or Prince Tom, or Prince one thing and another. But after the war, Mr. Elmer ain't had no money for no college. He stayed home and worked what was left of the place. Now he's just a farmer like everybody else around here. 40 acres and lucky to have a mule. All that big old plantation gone. Now, He commenced raising tomatoes and strawberries and peas and potatoes and table corn, collard, turnip, stuff like that. Load him up on the wagon, hitch up old Joe the mule, and she pull him on over to Monument Avenue over Richmond, and he sell that stuff to the big shots over there. Rest of his life, Mr. Elmer grieve over the war, taking off most of his land and all his niggers. He talk about his daddy, Marse French, all the time, and how good they had it back in the old days. Make me grieve too. Now go along and Mr. Elmer marry a woman named Miss Coley. They ain't much past that honeymoon till she starts to swell up. After she give birth to Mr. Perry, she start getting the fits and wallow around on the floor. Now she was right pitiful, poor thing. She couldn't help it, but she talk out of her head half the time. They stick her in the back room upstairs and just let her out 2-3 times a week. And they walk her around the yard once or twice and stick her on back up in there. And while she walk around the yard, they send me up there to get her slop jars and go empty them down the back. She had 4 of them, and they all be full up to the jush. Now, you learn how to be careful toting mess like that. Well, I cook her food, but Miss Corey won't let me feed her because she's scared she turn into a nigger too if she eat a food that nigger done fixed. She was right pitiful. Didn't have no peace of mind at all. Now, she done went on home to Jesus while she was still a young woman, 20-something years old. I seen them toting her down them steps in a chair with some towels over top her head, and that was all she wrote. She was a lot of trouble to me, but I didn't mind taking care of her. I wouldn't mind if she 5 pots full up. Well, they dig a hole in the meadow in that cold, cold ground behind the house and lay her down and they throw that mud down in her face. Now, I ain't never had no child of my own, but I like to have. One time I stopped bleeding 2 months. I never said nothing to Mr. Elmer. Didn't want him fretting over me. Then some terrible mess come rolling on out of me and I was all right again. So little old Mr. Perry, all he got is me after they put his mammy in the ground. He a little man by then, running around in a yard, chasing after his ducks and whatnot. I raised him up like he one of mine. I take to Mr. Perry right good, and he take to me too. I think more of that little shit ass than anybody I ever seen. He always fixing something for me. He fixed a hole in the wash tub. He fixed the floor. He fixed the dough. And Mr. Elmer give him some tools, and he's a fixing fool. Like old Mr. Perry didn't love to work. Little old Mr. Perry didn't love to work. Oh, he stayed busy. He just don't like no hard work, no sweat of the brow work. He liked to piddle, fix something, make something to ride on. And just don't get him to dig no post holes or pitch no hay. And so help me Jesus, don't get him to paint nothing. He don't just paint something, he paint everything. One time he get paint on a breeze that come in under the door. You kill a hog, that boy gone, down in the woods. Don't see him no more till that crackling bread fixing to come out the stove. I don't blame him. I don't love no field work neither. Well, Mr. Elmer died before Mr. Perry graduated, so Mr. Perry quit school and started working at a place, but he don't like it, and he don't know how. He's sitting up there with 40 acres of ground, and all he raising is weeds. Every kind of weed you could ever call, from ginseng weed right on down to wiregrass. So Mr. Perry bust up all that's left of the old plantation and sell it off. He sell the field in the back to Mr. Eddie. Then along Creighton Road, he sell them places where Mr. Shadow, Mr. Stack, Miss Bottomley build their places at. Didn't want to keep enough ground even to raise a dough garden. He said, I'll eat out of a can. I ain't never gonna pull another turnip or another year of corn as long as I live. I plead with him. I tell him, say, your daddy didn't raise somebody to eat out of a can. So he hang on to 2-3 acres out
behind the old Johnny house. And every spring, Mr. Eddie come over with his tractor and plow it up. And I plant some stuff, then I pick it, and then I cook it, and then I can it. Well, Mr. Perry buy a little piece of ground way over yonder in Mechanicsville, right there at the bottom of Courage Hill, where it crosses up with Cold Harbor Road, and he built a little brick stove. Lord, no, he didn't build it himself. He let some colored boys do it for him. Then he commenced to selling radios. He called them super hooper duper receivers, so something like that. Then you got to pay more for a super hooper duper receiver than you do for a regular radio. And that's what he do. He sell radios. He fix them. Televisions too, when they come along. From the first day he started that stove, his hand never touched another mule, never touched another pitchfork, a hoe, a post hole digger as long as he lived. Now, Mr. Perry did all right during the Depression. He made a little money. Everybody wanted a super hooper duper radio receiver, and he sell them to him. They bust them up. Mr. Perry fixed them up, and he charged them cash money every time. He married a tiny little woman, called herself Miss Virginia. She from North Carolina, but she Miss Virginia. The doggiest thing I ever seen. She talked funny too. All them Tar Heels talk funny. She always saying, I'm so tired, I don't know what in the world to do. I couldn't understand half what she said. She'd give money to the church, but besides that, she right close with what she got. In Depression time, she wouldn't spend a quarter on nothing. She had a nickel that she kept so long, rubbing it up against the sides of her pocketbook, till that nickel wore down and looked like a dime. But I didn't mind her. When Miss Virginia come along, I wash her clothes, I cook her something to eat, that's all right with me. She Virginia Walls. I Mammy Walls. Same name. Well, right in the middle of Depression, Miss Virginia dropped little Mr. Claude Ashley Walls. Whenever little old Claude Ashley come into this world, it was all they could do just to keep life in him. He blew as a huckleberry. They kept him up on the 11th floor of the medical college most 3 months before they carried him home. By that time, Miss Virginia's titties done dried up and she ain't got a drop of milk in them. So she screamed and hollered that she got to buy a cow so that the child had fresh milk. And Mr. Perry ain't studying no cow. So every morning and every night, old Mammy sitting up under that cow yanking on them titties. And that darn old cow squirting up 3-4 gallons of milk every day of this world. We got milk all over the place. I'm churning butter. I'm making cheese. I'm making buttermilk. I'm making custard. We giving milk and butter to half Hanover County. Colored woman from New Kent County hear about it, and here she come, 9 miles walking, looking for free buttermilk. I near most worked myself to death. Well, that cow milk made Claude Ashley sick, so Lord have mercy, we sell that cow. That's all right with me. I ain't never had no use for milk anyhow. And we feed that baby pet milk out of a can, and he do fine. He's a smart little boy, but he a old folks child. Now, they usually ain't worth nothing. Look at Jimmy Summers, old folk boy, a draft dodging the second war. Well, Claude Ashley, he stay in the house and he read them old books. They get him a dog. Don't want to play with a dog. Get him a bicycle. Don't want to ride the bicycle. He stay in the house all the time reading some old plague book except to go out and pick some flowers and bring them in the house and put them in a jar. His mammy all the time tell him he gonna be a doctor when he grow up, and he said, "That's right, Mama. I gonna be a doctor when I grow up." And he is too. He's a doctor right to this day. Well, they let me go to the white church when I'm minding Claude Ashley. They let me sit down wherever that boy is at. Front pew, back pew. Don't nobody mind where I sit at. All them other Sundays, Uncle George Taylor come by and carry me on down to the colored church in Mosby Bottom. They all right down there, but colored people, they do too much shouting in church. It's better at the white church where you can just sit there and rest your feet and let Preacher Parker tell you how hot hell is. Well, Claude Ashley do real good in school. Get A in everything but football. He don't like nobody hitting him in the face. He play track to 100 yards. He like that. Don't nobody hit you in the face, and you only got to run 2-3 minutes at a time to get your 100 yards. Then you go sit down. But he ain't never been much of a man. He just like his daddy. He don't love to work. But that's all right because he studied for the doctor. University of Richmond, Medical College. You don't have to lift nothing up to be a doctor, and that's what he looking for. To don't lift nothing heavy up. And that's what he done. A doctor. Now he live over town in the West End somewhere. He want something lifted up, he tell a nigga do it. He got plenty of money now. He don't talk to me no more. Ain't nothing wrong with that. I wouldn't talk to no niggas neither if I didn't have to. But that boy didn't have it easy. His daddy dropped down dead right over in his stove over in Mechanicsville, and Claude Ashley ain't no more than just started up there at medical college. Well, Miss Virginia went half crazy over that thing, crying and screaming like something pitiful. Well, I'd be crying too. She's crying and scream all that day and all that night and half the next day. And Dr. Red come and give her a shot about 3 o'clock in the evening, and she don't wake up till 9 o'clock the next day. And then they put Mr. Perry in the ground that same day, and she's still crying, hollering all through the preaching, down to the grave, hollering, falling out. Then he bring her home. Then they bring her home and give her one more shot, and she out cold, like Joe Louis done bopped her one. Then she right much better, doing a little sniveling and whatnot, but she say, oh, she all right now. She even smiled a little bit. Now I thought that was right funny because she never did much smiling, even when somebody didn't die. So she go along 3-4 days sitting quiet. She got her Bible in her lap, but she ain't reading it, just holding it and looking at the wallpaper. Then one day, well, 1 week to the day after they done put Mr. Perry in the ground, she say she go to town over to Miller Roads and buy a new pocketbook and some new shoes. Then she get in that DeSoto and go a long way from here. She stop on the Marshall Street Viaduct and jump off. She land on top of Mr. Willard's ice house. Bam! And make a terrible fuss, and Mr. Willard sent a boy up to the roof to see what caused all the racket, and he come back down there, and he tell Mr. Willard, say, there's a naked white woman up there. Then he forgot to tell him that she was dead, so Mr. Willard called up the police folks, and they come over there and say, she ain't really naked, she just dead. Just her shirt and her brassiere done fly off when she smacked down on that roof. Well, Mr. Willard went to his grave saying how sorry he was that he sent that nigger boy up there where he could look at a dead white woman's titties. Well, a month later, Lawyer Hearns called me up and said he gonna read Mr. Perry's will. Well, Claude Ashley carried me on up there because he got to be there too. And Mr. Hearns said that Mr. Perry said in the will that I got to stay in the house the rest of my born days, and Claude Ashley got to feed me. Well, it won't no more than 2 weeks before Claude Ashley went up to the courthouse and told Judge Wacker that both his mammy and his daddy is dead, and he got to sell the house so I can pay for medical college, and he can't sell no house with no old nigger woman sitting all up in it, and the judge tell me I got to get out. Well, I don't want to be someplace where I ain't wanted. So Miss Petty done just moved out to Hanover County from the city of Richmond, and she want a colored woman in her house, and I go on over there. Well, that's been a few years ago. She said I can stay here the rest of my life. That's exactly what I'm gonna do. Miss Petty gonna keep her word.
Lonesome Whistle reflects the pessimism in Southern society, where poor men, black and white, carried from childhood an expectation that they would one day wind up in prison.
I was riding number 9, heading south from Caroline. I heard that long lonesome whistle blow. Got in trouble, had to roam, left my gal and left my home. I heard that long lonesome whistle blow. Just a kid acting smart, I went and broke my darling's heart. I guess I was too young to know. They took me off the Georgia main and locked me to a ball and chain. I heard that long lonesome whistle blow. I'll be locked here in this cell till my body's just a shell and my hair turns whiter than snow. I'll never see that gal of mine. Lord, I'm in Georgia doing time. I heard that long some whistle blow.
Next monologue is going to be Getting the Goat. This is drawn against a backdrop of abject poverty that was visited upon many poor whites following the Civil War and up to the time of the Korean War.
Mama didn't even have to shake me. And she's still asleep in the bed with Peg and baby Maisie. Yeah, Peg's 11, but she's taller than any grown woman around this section of Hanover County. She and Mama had their backs to one another trying to get away from each other's body heat. Mama's got her arms around Maisie like she's protecting her from something. It's a June Saturday morning, no school. Me and my little brothers have to sleep on the floor on the pallets of wool World War II Army overcoats that my cousins and uncles give us. In the other room is the table, the cook stove, the icebox, and Daddy's cot, which he sleeps on. Light comes streaming in through some torn-up, dirty old lace curtains that Aunt Rudy give Mama instead of throwing them in the trash pile. Curtains don't add much to this place. Who in the hell is going to peep in our window at 7 white trashes? All them farmers and bootleggers hanging around Pruitt's store call this house a shack. Well, they don't mean no harm, but it hurts me to hear that. This ain't no shack. We white people. I pull on my old patched up work breeches without waking up Mama. Yeah, I don't have to talk to her. She would just give me some of that old don't get your hopes up too high baloney. I step over my brothers, and Daddy calls them Swift and Mousy. He calls me Man. It's a name that Mama gave me right after I'd been born because I was so big. 12 pounds and 13 ounces. I used to like that nickname till Carlton Hull started teasing me about it. Carlton is 15 years old, but he's still in the 6th grade. He'd say, "Hey man, you got hair on your dick yet?" Tiptoeing to the kitchen, I still smell Daddy's feet. His feet and his cot stink all the time. Now he's gone to work already. The truck's gone too, a 39 Ford deuce and a half. He always says he don't care what color his truck is as long as it's black. He calls it Black Lady. He always parks on the side of the hill because the starter ain't no good. It's hot enough to be summer, but school ain't let out yet. Usually, I like school right smart, but I can't wait to get shared of 6th grade. The teacher, old lady Wilkins, got red hair and a red ass to match. And I could wait until late in the day to get to work, but I want to get away from that crowd in the house. On Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, I would have to get up at 4:30 and cut it before I go to school. On Saturday, I choose my time. I walk across the field up to an old man Sledge's asparagus patch between rows of corn that was ankle high. And there's a couple of bushel hampers waiting for me, so I grab a hold of one of them and get to cutting that darn old asparagus. Looks like little green devil horns coming up. By 11 o'clock, I had cut and bunched 41 bunches, 10 cents a bunch, $4.10. Now, Mama needs that money. But old man Sledge is hiding out, so it looks like I won't get paid until Monday. His car is gone, green, 51 Lincoln. Well, the sun's pretty hot now, and I'm sweating right smart, and I ain't going back to the house. No how, no way. Mama would just put me to work. Let her put Swift and Mosey to work for a change. They's a couple of lazy little shit asses. They need to learn to know how to work too, like everybody else. All they need to do is pick up wood chips to start the fire with, but you have to yell at them 100 times before they will do even that much. I'd smack them upside their goddamn heads if Mama would let me. Well, I go to my spot. Now, my spot is through to the other side of the woods where I go to be by myself. A wild strawberry patch is there next to a grove of loblolly pines growing out of red clay dirt. Well, I eat some strawberries for a while. The wild ones that are the size of a pea but a lot sweeter than the ones that the farmers raise. They're so small that Daddy says you could starve to death in a 100-acre field of them. And then I laid down on a patch of moss to kill me some time. I look up in the sky at the white clouds to see what else they look like. Now Peg and me play that sometime. She sees animals like dogs and catfish. I see maps of the 48 states. Now the best one I ever saw was a map of Virginia. Now one time I told Ben Morgan about the shapes in the cloud, and he beat me up. Now his real name is Ben Morgan, but everybody calls him Big Moron for a reason that everybody but him can figure out. Well, I laid back on the moss thinking about my goat. It's going to be my goat, and Daddy had said so. But I remember back the time I'd gotten my hopes all up when he promised faithfully that he would take me to a Richmond Colts doubleheader one Sunday. Well, the day comes, and he said he got sick. Well, he was sick all right. He got hold of a jar full of Stump Crouch's moonshine whiskey. No wonder he was puking. I can't count on that son of a bitch because of all those times when Mama and me and everybody else would be waiting for him to come home on a payday Friday night when we wouldn't have nothing to eat for supper until he brought it. Him and his nigger buddy Lee go in together on a pint of Old Crow and drink it down and spend half the night singing them old songs that nobody wants to hear. It'll be 10 o'clock before we got home, and Swift and Mosey and Maisie have already gone to bed hungry. Well, the loblolly shadows are getting long when I hear the planks on the bridge down the road go bumpity-bump like they do when somebody drives over them. Then I hear Black Lady drop on down the second gear as she starts climbing up a half-mile hill. Now that flathead V8 engine sang a second gear song all the way up to our turn, and when she wheeled into the lane, Daddy slammed her down into low gear, and that high Kitty Wells voice dropped on down to it sound like Hank Thompson and the Brazos Valley Boys. Well, I jump up and start running off through the woods, ducking the limbs and the vines that hang across the path, full out, throttle wide open, down the hill, feeling the slickness of the leaves under my bare feet, slick as ice, that could any minute fall me down and leave me all skinned up. But I don't care. Now, W.D. Myers, the nephew of Daddy's boss, Big Nose Billy, bought his boy a goat for a pet, which is dumb as sewing a button on a fart, because nobody I know would pay good cash money for a goat, which ain't good for nothing but eating honeysuckle. But that fool boy was scared of it, and W.D.'s old lady told him to get scared of it. In school, I read stories about people drinking goat milk, but I don't think that area living soul in Hanover County would ever want to drink any liquid that comes out of a critter that smells the way that a goat smells. So W.D. bought a bale of hay to feed the goat on until he was figuring out how to... So W.D. bought a bale of hay to feed the goat on while he was figuring out how to get rid of it. Now, he wanted to shoot it, but the people over town would have gotten mad about the noise and the mess. So he asked Daddy if didn't he live out in the country, out in Hanover County, and won't there somewhere out there to feed a goat out there? And Daddy said, yes, there was plenty of honeysuckle, and Dub Myers give him the goat. When I get to the house, they're all looking at my goat. Uncle Percy, which we call Unc Perk, lives in a shack next to us. Now he commenced sidling out of his place to see what the heck is going on. And he done knows the old busybody. Daddy say he's afraid somebody's going to fart and he ain't going to smell it. Well, my goat is tied to a stake in the truck body with a 10-foot piece of rope. And Daddy's a city boy who don't know enough to tie the goat up short so he don't break a leg running around the back of the truck. Well, my goat's standing there on the tailgate of the truck looking down on us like some goofy-ass, yellow-eyed preacher getting set to preach a sermon on why we all going to hell and why we should give him some money. Well, Daddy unties my goat, then he jumps on down and tries to coach the goat to jump down too. But the goat says, no siree, Bob. He gets all stiff-legged, and Daddy pulls on the rope, but them hooves can't get no traction, and Daddy just yanks him off the truck, and my goat falls to the ground and then jumps back up like a drunk, trying to show he ain't really drunk. Well, Daddy hands the rope to Unc Perk, who holds it straight out like a rope that might bite him. Then Daddy jumps back up in the truck and starts to untie a buggy. A buggy? Daggone! Daddy never said nothing about no buggy. It looked fresh painted, all shiny white mostly, 2 wheels big as a bicycle wheel and made out of wood, and the spokes of wood too, and painted red. It is mine. I finally own something. Most of them other boys at school have stuff in there that their mamas and daddies give them. Baseball gloves, BB guns, and bicycles, and ponies, and cowboy suits. I ain't got none of that stuff. I'm lucky if I got britches that keep my hind end from showing through. Well, Daddy rolls the buggy onto the back of the truck and yells at Unc Perk to help him lift it down. Unc Perk grunts something and looks all confused and turns in a circle back and forth like a dog getting ready to lay down and getting all red in the face and saying, God damn it all to hell, Slim, what the hell am I supposed to do with this goddamn goat rope? And Daddy saying, let little man hold it. No, he too little. That goddamn goat will drag him to death. Tie him to something. So Unc Perk ties the rope to the clothesline all the while that goat ain't took nary a step. So now Unc Perk is mad because he don't like anybody telling him what to do, which is why Aunt Nettie say he an old bachelor. While he's coughing and cussing and sputtering and goddamn this and the son of a bitch that. And then he starts choking because he's got cancer in his throat. And he's leaning over, holding on to a tree and heaving like he's trying to puke. Nothing but some slime is coming out. I look away because it makes me want to puke too. And Daddy's up in the truck holding on to the bucket, tall as a telephone pole and standing stock still, staring down at Unc Perk, waiting for him to quit his choking and carrying on. Finally, the old man stands up straight, breathing in and out real hard. He wipes some slobber hanging off his lips with the palm of his hand and rubs it off on the truck tire. Daddy says, you ready now? And Unc Perk just cuts his eyes at him and walked over to the truck and put his hand on the bucket. He knows better than to sass back Daddy. Daddy will whip his ass. Well, Daddy jumps off the truck and they both lift it down. As soon as it hits the ground, I look inside the cart and see the harness. It's all painted white leather, where the straps cross each other. A piece of brass the size of a 50-cent piece holds them together. Now the reins are tied to the halter because there ain't no bit to put in the goat's mouth like it was for a horse or a mule. And they mine. Nobody else can touch them without my say-so. Well, Daddy and Unc Perk hang the harness on the goat's back and then pulled the buggy up behind him till he was between his shafts. Well, Mr. Goat, still as a statue, head held high like he's looking over a fence, eyes all shining and sparkling like they're made out of ice. Still, he ain't took nary a step since he fell down off that truck. I rubbed the goat's head and the hair is stiff and white. And I figured he likes the rubbing because he don't shy away. I commenced thinking of a name for him. Billy the Goat. Billy Goat. Billy. Yeah. I imagine in my mind that I drive up to Pruitt's store to get groceries, and all the colored boys hanging around there slap each other's hands and fall down laughing when I drive up, me and my goat cart, and maybe one of them will hold the reins while I go inside, and Ned Pruitt give me what I come to fetch. Then I tell Ned Pruitt, Daddy will pay you the money on Friday. And Ned Pruitt snuffles and spits out a piece of his cigar and says, well, I'd rather you owe it to me than beat me out of it. And the laughing colored boys will hand me back the reins and say, you stay riding in the ditch with that thing, Mr. Norman. One of these days, when old Mr. Heater's truck come highballing along, dust flying every which way, then there ain't no more buggy, ain't no more goat, and ain't no more you. Now Perks says, God damn it, Slim, you sure Lord took long enough. And Daddy says, go to hell and stay there. I never before in all my born days ever hitched up a goddamn goat cart. I figured out this son of a bitch, didn't I? Well, Billy in the cart is hitched up and ready to go. Now I start to climb in the buggy, but Daddy takes me by the arm and throws me off. I'm going to try that son of a bitch out first. I got to make sure it's safe for you. You don't know a goddamn thing about driving a goat cart. Not a goddamn thing. Fire rose up behind my eyes, and I think to myself, you chicken shit, city slicking son of a bitch. You don't know a horse from a mule. You don't know a sweet potato vine from a cornstalk. You're just a city boy living in the country. But I know the country. How many farmers have I worked for? I know how to plant it and when to pick it, and I know how to plant it and plow with a mule, and I know how to put mule shit and hen shit in a manure spreader, and how it tastes when the wind blows it in my face. What do you know? You just got a job crawling around on all them houses with all them niggers you work with. But you're the foreman, right? You're the foreman because you're the only white man who will take that nigger job crawling around under a goddamn house. You make the same wages that the niggers make, but you're the foreman. You're the boss man. All the niggers call you Mr. Percy. Mr. Percy, my ass. Your boss, Mr. Big Nose Benny, don't think no more of you than he thinks of them niggers. Just because you white, he calls you foreman, and you kiss his ass. But I just say, can I go first after you? But hell yeah, it's your buggy, ain't it? So Daddy sits on his little buckboard seat with the reins in his hands. He flicks them against Billy's back and yells, come on, goat. But Billy still ain't moved an inch from where he landed out of that truck. Daddy flicks the reins and yells again. Billy, still as a statue. Daddy holds the reins like a long strap. God damn it, goat, I said, let's go. Then with the reins, he gives Billy a terrible lick across his rump. All hell breaks loose. Mama and Peg are yelling. Baby Maisie starts crying. Swift and Mosey start giggle screaming. And Uncle Perk just standing there with his hands on his hip like he knows more than anybody else. And Billy takes off for the woods like a bat out of hell. Daddy just sitting there tall and straight like he's on his way to somebody's funeral. And Billy is galloping across a patch of honeysuckle that covers over all the whiskey bottles and the tin cans that Uncle Perk throws down there. Now, when the goat and the buggy and Daddy hit the trash pile, bottles and cans are clanging and breaking against each other, and all that racket scared Billy, and he jumps up in the air and twists around like the deep sea fish in the movie told news. But he come down on all 4 feet and keeps on hauling ass toward the woods. Now, there is no use in all of God's green earth to have a 4-strand barbed wire fence running through the middle of Uncle Perk's trash pile. No reason for it at all. But somebody put one up there anyway. Billy heads for it. He goes to jump. He almost clears it. But the buggy don't. Daddy don't. Now, Daddy might have been all right if he just ducked his head down. But he didn't. The top strand of that barbed wire gets him right across the face. His legs are all tangled up in the traces and the shafts, and both Daddy and the goat are hanging on the fence like they are the washing. Billy's just kicking the sand out of Daddy, and Daddy is swinging and kicking and yelling and God damn it all to hell, God damn it all to hell, God damn it all to hell. And Billy is carrying on just as bad. Finally, Daddy pulls him up out of the mess and leaves Billy in the buggy hanging there on the barbed wire fence. He's holding his face, and blood is coming out between his fingers all down his shirt and pants. And Billy is acting something crazy too. He's bleating and kicking, but the leather harness is just too strong for him. He kicks on kicking and butting until there ain't a piece of wood from that buggy that was much bigger than a pencil. And Billy is hanging by his collar on the top strand of the barbed wire fence. Now, I want to get near enough to him to pull him free, but all his kicking and twisting keeps me away. Uncle Percy says, that uncle, that ignorant son of a bitch is strangling himself to death. Ain't nothing I can do about it. I need to take a drink. Then he turns around and walks to his house. And it comes to me. My goat's going to die if I don't get him off that fence. And I know better than to think anybody will help me. Uncle Percy is drinking whiskey. Peg is looking after Maisie. Mama's trying to stop the blood coming out of Daddy's face, which is near about torn off his face. And I stumble around in the honeysuckle and the bottles and the cans to get close to Billy. I want to untangle him, but he won't let me near him with all the kicking and stuff. And his tongue is stuck out of his mouth like he's trying to catch a snowflake on it. And his eyes are bulging out like he is seeing a ghost. After a little while, he calms down a little, and I put my arms around him and try to lift him up a tiny piece to take the strain off his neck. But he's bigger and heavier than me, and he don't even budge. President, he ain't squirming none. I try to lift him up, but nothing I do is going to make any difference. But I stay that way a long time, crying and hugging and crying, and not nobody paying me no mind at all. Uncle Perk comes out of his house just long enough to throw away another whiskey bottle that crashes into the honeysuckle a few yards from him. Peg's trying to stop Maisie's crying by tickling her and saying boo. Mousie and Swift pretend that they are automobiles named Joe and Jake, one a Ford and the other Chevrolet, and they run up and down the lane making noises like starting up, changing gears and wrecking. Daddy's sitting next to the top step of the porch and leaning way back. He ain't yelling no more, just leaning back like he's gone to sleep. The son of a bitch should have let me go first.